And the first of the inductees tonight is Bob Morrison. Bob has been called the father of the front ensemble and has been a longtime advocate for music education in our schools. Perhaps some in the Hall of Fame and present tonight remember the late 1960s when drum corps was introduced to the marching timpani. Just think about it, a marching timpani. That seems almost to be an oxymoron. Can you imagine that they carried those things throughout the performance? Now we see a collection of wonderful percussion instrumentation that offers a wonderful richness to the sound and arrangements of our drum corps. Bob's role in this growth has been enormous. In education, teachers often talk about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. Bob was tireless in his quest to include music and other arts. Nowadays, schools use the acronym STEAM instead of STEM. STEAM is an educational approach to learning that uses science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics as access points for students. Thank you, Bob, for those contributions and for the contributions to our world of drum corps and to the world of education in our everyday lives. Please, Bob, come forward so we can say hello to you in person.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to say thank you to my partner in many crimes, Tom Hannum, for nominating me, Scott Johnson, Jim Prime for providing supporting letters, Michael Cesario for his generous words, Ralph Hardman for his support, and Donnie Van Doren for being a champion for me through the Hall of Fame process. It's been the privilege of my lifetime to work with each of you, and I'm humbled by your words. And I'm grateful to the Hall of Fame committee for their collective lapse in judgment, which made this honor possible this evening. When I look at all the names of the people who I'm joining, many whom I've known or worked with personally, all I can say is wow. And I also want to extend my congratulations to both John and Doug. I first met John on the SEV staff in 1992. It was my last year of teaching. And Doug, I'm not sure how we never really crossed paths, considering all the time I spent in Kitchener with the Ventures, right? I mean, Kitchener is 1 degree of separation for this entire evening tonight, so. And I also want to say that it's great to see so many aspects of my life represented here tonight. My drum corps family, my Pearl family, my music industry family, my Music for All family, and of course, my actual family. And I'd be remiss if I failed to note that I'm the first front ensemble arranger to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. I hope this is the beginning of a new era where other worthy arrangers are recognized for the incredible contributions they make as well. Now, what is ironic about this time and this place is my journey and how my journey began. You see, I got my start in marching percussion in the National Football League. I was a 15-year-old snare drummer in the Baltimore Colts marching band. Yes, the very same Colts who reside in that building across the street. My teachers were John Zeman and Pops Hannum. They were the ones who first exposed me to this thing called drum corps, and they did so through the cadences of the Hawthorne Caballeros and the New York Skyliners. And I saw my first drum corps in August of 1978 on TV. It was the DCI World Championships live on PBS from Denver, Colorado. The corps coming onto the field was the Crossmen, with that badass drum line and their faces painted up like the rock band Kiss. few weeks later, I would see these same Crossmen perform live at the Westchester Band Show, and they announced auditions for the '79 season. So I turned to my friend Scott Kelly and suggested we try out because Scott had a car and could drive us. And while Scott could drive, he could not navigate. So we were late for that first audition. Chris Thompson told Scott and I to go out to the truck to get a drum, but there were only 2 drums left, a 36-inch bass drum and a 32-inch marching timpani. And since I was the only one who actually played timpani, well, we went back inside, and during exercises, a short, balding instructor came up to me and peered over his large Coke bottle glasses and looked me in the eye and said, "Don't be late." And those were the first words that Tom Hannum ever muttered to me. And thus began our 40-plus year history together. Now, Charlotte and Robbie Robinson, the Crossman founders, became second parents to me, literally, taking me in like a lost puppy. Tom Hannum and Chris Thompson were my mentors. And after suffering through that first season carrying a 32-inch timpani, I asked to have the drums grounded for the '80 season, touting the virtues of having 3 more horn players and 1 timpani player. Everyone agreed, and so it began. I never marched another day in my life. After aging out, Tom brought me back with him to the cadets in '83, and this was my chance to give back through teaching. Now imagine being a 21-year-old walking into your first staff meeting with Michael Cesario, Greg Cesario, Tom Hannum, Jim Prime, Mark Sylvester, Peggy Twiggs, Donnie Van Doren, Sadie Wallace, and George Zengali. Tom Ungst was in the snare line, and Michael Klesch was on the podium as drum major. Are you kidding me? 10 of these people are in this Hall of Fame, and these were the first people I was given the chance to collaborate with. And they gave me fairly wide berth to implement my vision for placing a complete percussion ensemble in front of the corps, creating another voice. And that's how we came up with the name Front Ensemble. And this was not just about setting down the instruments we had, this was about imagining a whole new world for the activity. My inspiration for this was Dr. Frank Schaefer, my professor of percussion at Memphis State, who gave me broad exposure to thorough grounding in percussion ensemble instrumentation and literature. And my partner in this was Joey Gaudette, an SCV alum who was very much a part of the creative sauce of the percussion program at the cadets. In 1984, Dave Phillips, the director of the Ventures, called me at the urging of Jim Prime because he had the idea to field an all-girl corps with only a front ensemble and no battery. And I was excited by the opportunity, and I am proud of the work that we did together at the Ventures. By 1985, the vision we had for the cadets' front ensemble would manifest itself in Bernstein's First Symphony, Jeremiah. It was Michael Klesch's first full show arrangement. It was the perfect selection for the evolution of the front ensemble. In '86, I was recruited by Al Duffy to join Pearl Drums on the West Coast, and it wasn't long before Ralph Hardiman asked me to come check out the Santa Clara Vanguard and eventually to arrange with him. I'm eternally grateful to Ralph for the opportunity and to Gail Royer for thinking that it was a good idea. Being part of the creative team that developed Phantom of the Opera for the DCI World title 30 years ago this week is one of the highlights of my career. And after taking the 1990 season off, Gail called me to say I should expect a call from a new first-time percussion caption head. Gail felt this new guy would benefit from my experience. My first meeting with the new guy was at his home in California to block out the show, Miss Saigon. I told him we would never win drums, so we should just go nuts and let creativity reign, which we did. Well, that new guy was Scott Johnson. Well, I was wrong, and we won drums at that memorable show. And that Scott Johnson fella, he might just have a future in this activity, don't you think? Tom Hannum, Chris Thompson, Ralph Hardiman, Scott Johnson. How lucky am I to be able to work with them? Working for Pearl during this time provided me another opportunity to give back, making the best products for performers to succeed. And in that role, I was able to work with many of the corps directors and percussion heads to help them achieve their vision for their program. In fact, in 1989, I worked with 17 out of the top 25 drum corps. And while I was at Pearl, I became painfully aware of the very real threats to music education, threats to our community. And that is why I became a full-time music and arts education advocate. Because a music educator paved the pathway for me in 4th grade. Charlie Blum was his name. Now, there are more than 150,000 music educators just like him doing the same thing, many in this room. Now, think of the millions of students these teachers impact every day, and you begin to get a sense of why I do what I do. I fight for them. And by fighting for them, I guarantee that all students will have as their educational right the opportunity to embrace their creative capacities through the art form of their choosing, dance, music, theater, visual arts, all the artistic disciplines that are deeply embedded in our DCI experience today. Now, I do this because when I came to the Crossman some 40 years ago, I was lost on a one-way path to nowhere or worse. And because of my involvement with the Crossman family and this activity, I was able to discover who I really was and who I could become. This is the greatest gift our activity gives to everyone, the process of self-discovery, teamwork, responsibility, personal growth, and committing to something greater than ourselves to reveal one's true identity. And these are the skills that I use every day, and this is the transformational power that each and every one of you in this room wield with your students. My proudest role in this activity is my role that I currently have, being a drum corps dad. I get to do this with both my children. My son Andrew is a drum major with the Carolina Crown, learning from many of the same people I taught with 3 decades ago. And my daughter Natalie leads PR for D'Addario and Company. And I get to sit back and watch them both, beaming with pride as they're living their own dreams, following their footsteps of their mother and I. And I want to thank my wife Nora, who I met as a result of this activity at a day of percussion in March of 1986. By the end of that event, Nora introduced herself to me and asked for some information. When she left, I turned to my good friend, the late Al Moffat, and said, "That's the girl I'm going to marry." Well, for the past 32 years, she's been by my side, encouraging, challenging, keeping me grounded, and making it possible for me to accomplish all that I have. I would not be here without you, Nora, and I love you very much. So everything I have, my friends, my family, my career, and even my wife, I owe in large part to this activity that we love so much. And over the past year, I've gone through a period of great reflection. And what I've learned is this: I am simply the amalgamation of all the people I've come in contact with and the experiences that we've shared. It's because of Charlotte and Robbie, and Tom and Chris, and Ralph and Scott, and Jimmer and Donnie, and the Michaels, Cesario and Klesh. It's because of the people I marched with, the people I taught with, and the marching members in our corps. And it's because of this family we call Drum Corps that I became the person that I am. Without them and without many of you, I would still be on that pathway to nowhere, or worse. And that's why I fight hard every day to ensure that every child has the same opportunities that I have had to find their own pathway. Which is why tonight is really the highlight of my career, coming full circle to stand before all of you, many of my closest friends, and the people who truly know me the best. Grateful for our friendships and for the experiences that we've shared, humbled by your generosity of both knowledge and kindness, and honored to take my place alongside the legends of our great activity. From the bottom of my heart, thank you very, very much.